Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sun Coaches West podcast. My name's Kris Cinkovich. I'm the host. Welcome to episode 3. We're lucky today have a very special guest joining us. Please welcome the head coach at Clovis West High School in Clovis, California, Eric Brown. Eric, it's good to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Cink. Always good to see you.
Really a pleasure to have you on this. And so everybody knows, Eric and I coached together one time at the University of Idaho and have maintained a very close relationship. I consider him family, along with his wife and kids, and it's really cool to have him on here. He has a unique perspective from being both a college coach and now he's a head high school coach, something that him and I share in common. So let me pick it up. I'm not going to tell the background. Eric, if you could share your background with us and what eventually led you to become the head coach at Clovis West.
Yeah, so this is my alma mater. So I played football here at Clovis West, and then I walked on at Fresno State. I had a great opportunity to play for my dad there. My dad coached there with Coach Hill for 13 years before he passed. So I had a good opportunity and got the chance to walk on. Played really 2 seasons at Fresno State. And Coach Hill sat me down after my 3rd shoulder surgery, and he said, I think you're going to be a better coach than you are a player. And he was right on with that point. So I started coaching when I was 21. I was a student assistant there at Fresno State and was looking for a GA opportunity as I started to get towards my graduation. And kind of, again, how it went with my walk-on situation, Coach Hill brought me in and he said, "Why are you looking to go somewhere else? We have a GA job opening here. You're going to take that." And so I did. I was a graduate assistant there. Spent a year at the end of Coach Hill's regime, and then got on the hunt again after Coach Hill got fired. But was really blessed with the opportunity to stick around with Coach DeRuiter in his first off season there at Fresno State. They moved me to the offensive side of the ball. So I was going from the defensive line to the offensive line, which to me I thought it was going to be world-changing, just the differences there. I've always been a defensive guy. But really that was so good for me as a young coach to get the opportunity to spend some time on the other side of the ball. And then I just saw the similarities in the positions. I learned from Will Plemons, a really good D-line coach, that technique is so much more important than a lot of stuff we spend time on. So to flip to the offensive line and just see how that really carried over was really good for me. And then I had the opportunity in June, before Coach DeRuiter's first season, I got a call from Trent Miles at Indiana State that he had an outside linebacker job open. And, I think the goal always as a young coach and as a graduate assistant is to get your own room and, go start recruiting and start, the real coaching side of things and not the grind and the breakdown and the stuff that not everyone loves, but the actual coaching side of things and getting on the field. So I left pretty late there in June, July, which is always a tough thing to do. But the opportunity was just too good to pass up. So went there to Indiana State. I spent a year there and then ended up sticking around at Indiana State with Coach Sanford as he took over for Coach Miles. And spent spring with Coach Sanford, and then the Fighting Vandals with Coach Sink had a couple defensive openings after spring ball for some reason. So I got the opportunity there to interview for the linebacker job at the University of Idaho, and spent 5 years there. And it was really a huge growing experience for me, and the amount of detail that we had to learn and show our players, the demand that we put on our players and on ourselves in that program to really turn it around. I know that's something Coach Sink and I talk about a bunch, just how proud we are of that turnaround that happened at the University of Idaho to get us to 9-4 and go to a bowl game after the first couple of years. It really felt like that could never happen. So I spent those 5 years there, and then got the opportunity to go work with a former coach of mine and colleague and friend of mine, Tim Skipper, was at UNLV as the defensive coordinator. So took that job with Coach Skip, coach of the linebackers there, and chance to get closer to home, get kind of back in the Mountain West area, which was nice as far as the plane travel went, instead of being in the Sun Belt with the University of Idaho. So yeah, was there for the last 2 years of Tony Sanchez's era. And then, like many coaches, we were fired, and we were looking for the next opportunity. And we, my wife and I, we had just had our second daughter, Sophie. We had already had Harper before that, so we were kind of in a position where she couldn't work at the time. So I was looking for the next job, and then COVID hit. So we're in Vegas on a rental with about a couple months left in our contract, and there's no jobs really with the COVID time. So we packed it up and we came back to Fresno, which is home to us, and we spent the first couple months looking for college opportunities, and they played that spring COVID season of high school football here, and I'm scrolling on Twitter and I saw the Clovis West football job had opened, and I looked at my wife Carrie and I said, I'm going to get that job. And I'd never coached high school football before, but I know that there's so many rewarding experiences that you can have, and really football is football, and I've always been told to make big time where you're at. So, so it's been really cool coming back home, and really cool being at my alma mater, and just trying to connect the alumni back to it, and getting friends back involved that had been involved in the past. But yeah, really blessed to be here.
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and they're fortunate to have you. You touched on Idaho, and obviously we were both there at the same time and shared the experiences, and it was a great turnaround engineered over those first 4 years. And one thing, and you touched on it, and you worked for Coach Paul Petrino, and he's one of my best friends, and he was a taskmaster. But there's not a coach that worked for him that listened and learned that's not a better coach for that experience. You kind of touched on that. Maybe you could share some more, because you talked about detail, and we're here to help other coaches.
For sure.
And the detail that was demanded there, I think, was special. Why don't you hit that, EB?
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. You had to be really on your P's and Q's, and especially there were many learning opportunities around the coaches where you could make a mistake and you might get nipped a little bit, but you would learn from it, so that by the time you got to your players, there was no mistakes, nobody on different pages as you left the staff room. Everyone kind of went out full force and knew the direction and the path we were headed. And one example that I'm going to actually use this year. So Coach Petrino not forced us, but asked us as a staff to put together a drill book and put together a presentation for the staff. And I thought that was really it was a hard deal. You really had to look at your drills and decide what drills actually make sense and what drills are just drills that I'm doing because somebody else did them. And then two, you really had to be detailed and understand and master the drills that you're planning on working with your kids, and the techniques that you're going to ask of your kids, because you're going to stand in front of a group of veteran coaches and Coach Petrino and present those to them. So I'm going to ask my coaches to do that here at Clovis West this year. We're going to do a drill book for every position, and then we're actually going to share it out to anyone within our feeder program. We're going to make sure they have copies of every position group, so that it's going to feel more like our younger kids are doing at least similar, as close as we can get to the similar drills as our varsity program's doing.
It's a great idea. Plus, you're helping those coaches in your youth programs get better, which will help you in two ways. A, it looks good for you guys to do, and B, it'll probably benefit the players that are coming your way.
Yeah, for sure.
And the fact that you're doing that and you're making your coaches present it, I think, is a great idea that anybody that's listening to this can share. The thing that I remember when you were talking, Eric, is, and I worked for Paul Petrino at Idaho, I worked for Bobby Petrino at Arkansas, and I worked for Bob Petrino Sr. at Carroll. and proud to have done so. But the thing about a drill tape was, yes, like you said, these got to be drills that are usable. But the other thing, as you remember, was it was demanded that that skill needs to show up on a game tape.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, then you would question, why are we doing this drill? And so that specific, so if you say, I'm doing a drill to help the linebackers in their read progression,
Mm-hmm.
well, then you have to be able to find that showing up on a game tape to justify that drill. I always thought that was a really good idea. And I remember I got that shoved on me at Arkansas one
Yeah.
time. And I never did the drill again because I could not say or show this is why we do this drill. And like you were talking about, man, and I would tell the coaches this that are listening, listen to the message you get from your boss, not how it's delivered. Because sometimes you can lose a really good message in that if you're thin-skinned, and it's all about trying to get better, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us now, how long you been the head coach at Clovis West?
4 years now. So 4 years. So this is going on season number 5. Took the job kind of late, so really got started in June
Right.
of that first season. But yeah.
And so tell me, what's the progression been like? I mean, because I went through the same thing you did. It was a while ago. I'd coached college football, and then I got a high school job, and I know I knew nothing about coaching high school football as I went into that. So what's that journey been like?
There's been ups and downs for sure. I think our first season, the expectation around here was so low that, I'll just tell you this. We won I believe it is our second game. And we played a decent DeMonte Ranch team, but we should have beat them. And I got the water jug dumped on me after the game. And this is our second game. And I know it was our first win and all that, but, it had just been a while since this program had been very good. So, and we took some lumps in that first season, and we expected to. We play in a really hard conference with a bunch of really good coaches. So we ended up, I think, 4-8 that first season. But we were building the pieces, and we had some really young talent. And then that second season, we came around and we won our conference. Probably should have made a real push to win the CIF. But I'll tell you this, and I'll be honest, and I've been honest with you, Cink, but I'll be honest with the audience that I didn't do a good enough job of really building the foundation of discipline and really eliminating the gray area in the program. And I think we really suffered from that in year 3. So year 3, we had a talented team. We were lacking a little bit of bigs up front, but we took a talented team and went 6-6, and it should have been a team that had a chance to win it, at least compete for a championship, but really we underachieved. And so that was kind of program reset for me after that, a good look in the mirror. We had some coaches move on to other jobs, and I really look at last year as, whether it's the rebuild year or year 1 or whatever, however you want to look at it, but last year was kind of the new foundation and the new normal of what we're doing going forward. And especially this offseason, as we've, you and I have talked a ton, but just making sure that there is no gray area in the program. And the young guys, like I tell my coaches all the time, that youth, we can only be young for so long. And it was great last year to be really young, and we were. But if we don't develop that youth, it's either going to be gone in the transfer world that we're in right now, or we're going to be pissed off that we didn't get anything done in the end of it. So our focus has been on development big time, and we're looking forward to, I think we've got every chance this coming season to have a really good, really productive year.
Well, I admire the fact that you're man enough to self-criticize, and a great coach does that, and sometimes you got to stab yourself, and then I know you've gone and you've talked to people. I'm fortunate that I was one of them that you've talked to, and I've talked on this podcast before, Eric, about gray area, and I learned as a head coach, man, the less I had to do, be the judge and jury, the better off it was, and it made my job a lot easier. So tell me maybe or share with the audience an issue or two that was gray to you, causing you problems, and something that maybe you fix now.
Yeah, I mean, we've got kids from not in the area. I think when you have a healthy program that attracts people, you're going to have people from outside your area coming to your school. And an issue that I would face is a kid 30 minutes away hitting traffic on the way here. And, so mom sending me a text or dad sending me a text that they're going to be late and it's their fault, or I didn't wake up in time. And coming from the college world, there was no mom or dad involved. If a kid was late, it was because he was late.
Right.
And I think I was a little bit too lenient on, okay, as long as I get a text beforehand, as long as a parent lets me know the reason that you're late. But I think that just left up so much. Like you said, the gray area, there was just way too much that you start getting texts from a random number saying it's a parent and that's the reason that a kid's late. So the follow-up, like you said, take it off of your plate. And the follow-up on all that became half of my job, was chasing down, all right, did this kid text you and say he was going to be late before he was late? And how do we handle it? He was late, but he got a flat tire. Well, that might happen once, and you're going to suffer the consequences of that one time. And instead of over and over and over and over, where it's always something. So I know you've talked about it on this pod, but I took your advice on the Count on Me board. We're doing that consistently now. And then also, we're very, very clear that the only reason you miss is there'd be a doctor's note and an excused absence from a doctor, or another sport going on at the time. We're not chasing kids around as much anymore. So
Right. You're focusing on getting to coach and develop them, right?
For sure.
Is why you guys are in it. And Eric and I have talked about this, and we'll share with the people that are listening, but even more important than the fact that you're firm and fair with everybody is the appearance to all in the program that you are fair. And like Eric and I talked, so this guy shows up late, and I'm not talking about Clovis West, I'm just talking in general. This guy shows up late, but nothing happens to him, but the coach knew that he had a flat tire, right? And so that goes, but then the next day another guy shows up late, but he gets punished. And now guys are looking at this like, so what's going on? So what Eric and I have talked about, and we've talked about on here, is get rid of all that, man. You're either there on time or you're not. And unless it was prearranged, like Eric's talking about, there's nothing else to talk about. If there's a flat tire, then you should have freaking left home earlier. Okay? And so this will make Eric's job way easier and allow him to coach on the stuff that he's good at, which is like getting that defense tuned up and getting that program tuned up, and not have to worry about all these other side deals, because that's not why any of us sign up to coach.
And
good for you.
It has been so much better. I mean, since your clinic and the talk that we had up in your suite there, it's been so much better. And what I did actually, I don't know that punishment's the right word, but our consequence for any late person, I actually used, one of your speaker, Vint, he was giving away a book at the end of his presentation, and he had this spin the wheel program that he put all the names, that plugged them in really easy, plugged in all the names, and pressed a button and it spins a little wheel like the roulette table,
right,
and then you would stop on a name. And so what I did was I put 25 up downs and 50-yard bear crawl and tennis court lap. And so if you want to gamble and show up late and not leave quite on time, that's a gamble. And so I don't know that I should condone gambling, but so they spin the wheel when they show up late, and now our kids are kind of, I've got a couple good leaders that are, as somebody walks in, they're chanting to spin the wheel, as if we're on The Price is Right, and it's made it way, way, way better just to hold them to that. And you might get a 50-yard bear crawl or whatever it may be. You might get a 20 push-ups. You're really
So
gambling.
our last pod, Eric, my friend Ernie Monfiletto, right, that helps run the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did at Douglas High School, but it was old school. It was like a big wheel of fortune wheel.
Yeah, there you go.
It was the wheel of discipline, and if you screwed up, you gambled with it. So, yeah, good for you. That's a freaking great idea. I love that. And they had great luck with that. So tell me then, what makes it unique and fun to play at Clovis West High School? So if I'm a kid walking down the hallway, hopefully what kind of good things would I hear my peers talking about?
Yeah, so I think we touched on it a little bit, but just the development piece. So first, I think we try to do things the best that we can, as close as we can to a college program, but we incorporate as much fun to eliminate the burnout. We don't want it to be just drudgery and the death march as you come to Clovis West football. So as much as I can mimic and do things like you and I spent time with the Seahawks. You set that up and got us out there with Coach Cable and the Seahawks. But Pete Carroll is somebody that I really try to. I can't be as cool, calm, and relaxed as he can. But I think we can incorporate a lot of the competitive stuff, a lot of the fun stuff. But as I think you would attest to standing out there at their practices, yes, they had a great time and they had music blaring and they were bopping around, dancing around. But when the whistle blew and it was time to work, they all went to work. And, so between Pete Carroll and then Pat Hill is the other one that I think a little closer to my style because Coach Hill was definitely a hard edge guy, but when he would show the players kind of his more fun, more soft side, and then as a program that we have a fun side to us. So, and some of the things I know you and I have talked about it, but like I guess my second year we had a really good 7-on-7, and we went to the Fresno State 7-on-7, and we won it. It wasn't really close, and we should have. But we got to our next practice, and I'm acting like I'm pissed off. And, you guys think you're so sweet. You think you're sweet. You know what's sweet? Ice cream. And I turn, and the ice cream truck's rolling out. And the music's blaring, and the guys get all crazy and go run to it. And, there's days I act like we're going to run them. And we moved over to Kasner, our intermediate school. We had a practice over there. And I told them we're going there because it's going to be a hard conditioning day. And I don't want you guys to show up at Clovis West and think about the day that this was. And the reality was that's the place I could get in the pool. I couldn't get in the pool at Clovis West. So I had a bag of one of our penny bags. I put it in the middle of the field, and I said, you guys grab that. And if this isn't the best scout team period that I've ever seen, then you guys are going to run till you puke. And they open the bag and it's beach towels, and they're looking at me like, what? And then I tell them, let's go get in the pool. And
Right.
So we try to do fun stuff like that. This past summer, I told them we had a big we do enough conditioning that they believe me when I say these things.
Right.
Or else this wouldn't work very often. But I told them we're going to have a big conditioning day, and it was actually the day that the new college football game had come out. And so I tell them we're going to meet in the film room, and as soon as we get done watching yesterday's practice, we're going to run out there and we're going to kick your butt. But when they walked in, we had 4 systems rolling with the NCAA playing, and so they all got excited and got a chance to play. So we try to do stuff like that.
What a great coach to model after. And as Eric said, him and I were lucky in that Coach Tom Cable, whose son Zach played for us at Idaho, gave us access to come and watch OTAs. And I can remember, I bet Eric can too, but we walked into the building and Coach Cable said, well, the team's gathering down here. I'm like, you guys are going to let us come to the team meeting? He's like, yeah, hell yeah. And we walked into where that big room was, right? It was a theater seating deal, and the music was freaking blaring, which you can get into later. And Tom explained to me, Pete Carroll has a distinct belief in that also. And the music was blaring, and there was a basketball hoop in there, and dudes were shooting free throws, playing, and then they had a guy from each of the two teams that had been in the Final Four March Madness deal, because it was in April, and they had them shoot 5 free throws apiece at the start of the meeting with everybody whooping and hollering at them. And then Coach Carroll spoke for seriously like 2 minutes to set the goal and tone of the day, but you could tell he's not the guy that's going to sit and talk like a lot of us think we can do and maintain people's attention, because we can't. And then he had a different coach come up, and they had a rural education of the day situation that he went over. And then they broke the meeting, they broke that and went to meetings. It was amazing. And then we'd watch him out on the field catching kickoff return, playing catch. Like, he's maintained why we all started playing football, because we like to hold the ball and catch it and run with it. And every line got a ball thrown at them all the time, including the O and D linemen. And it was just, there was a method to it. It's so cool, and I'm anxious here to see how it plays out in Las Vegas. Moving forward, Eric has mentioned several times that he played and was around Pat Hill. And Eric's dad, that he mentioned at the start of this, his name was Dan Brown. He was the defensive coordinator for Pat Hill in the heyday of Fresno State football, when a lot of us became aware of what they were doing. And long before anybody ever did it, they had a culture. I've grown fatigued of that word. They had a program and a standard. And nobody even used that word back in the late 90s. Their best season was in 2001. But I told Eric ahead of time that I'd like to know, how did men like Pat Hill and your dad build that culture long before anybody ever knew what culture meant?
Yeah, I mean, such a good question. So being from the outside looking in as a fan, from really like 98 till when I started playing in 07, you could see it, and you could tell that there was just a hard edge to the team. And, I was around enough to realize the hard edge, the competitive spirit, the chip on their shoulder, that came from practice, a lot of it, and how hard they practiced and how violent and physical they were. And so from the outside looking in, that's all I saw until I actually got the chance to play there. And so playing there, yes, we developed a hard edge. We had a chip on our shoulder. It was us against the world, but the us was so much there in that program. It was, we felt like a family. We felt like brothers. A lot of my best friends are guys that I played with at Fresno State.
Right.
But we developed real close-knit groups, and some of it was doing the hard stuff together. It was a really hard program. We worked our tails off, and that's going to make you close for sure. But it wasn't just that. I think a lot of times as coaches we think that that's going to make our team close, so we only do that. But there was a lot of things that, like I talked about with the pool for us in our program. Well, that under Coach Hill, when I played, we're in a hot summer fall camp, and Coach Baxter actually walks in. Coach Hill says, "Hey, Coach Baxter's going to put on the dress of the day." And everyone's kind of laughing, thinking he's going to come out in full gear, and he comes out in a swimsuit with no shirt and sunblock on his nose, and he said, "We're going to the water park." So we all got in the bus and go over to the water park. So, but and we did rookie shows there, which I think would be tough in today's age unless you really know there's going to be no phones involved. And I know you talked about it in your pod. I think it was Ernie.
Ernie Monfiletto again did that.
Ernie, good dude.
That was the break of training camp, and the phones went into the freaking box.
Yep. And
yeah.
So in those days, there weren't cell phones around as much.
Right.
You get a rare one every once in a while.
Right.
So we would do those rookie shows, and that would be a great way for us to get close, as a team and kind of
So
get on your coaches.
you like those?
Oh, I love it. I wish I could do them right now, Sink. It makes me
You don't
nervous.
think you can just because?
Yeah. Yeah, I just worry that somebody's going to say something or do something they shouldn't, and then if it gets out, it could be bad, or I'd have to go self-reported or something like that.
Well, if you remember Ernie's rules, they took the phones. If you were going to make fun of a coach or an adult, that person had to be in attendance, right? Because
Yep.
it was an honor to be roasted.
Yep.
And no mom, girlfriend, or wife talk ever.
Yep.
And yeah, it seemed to me like those were pretty fair.
Those are
deals.
great rules.
He did it up through like 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
But the firing of the phones was the greatest thing ever.
No doubt. No
There's
doubt.
nothing that makes me madder than a winning coach fired up in the locker room, probably could say something interpreted as derogatory of the opponent, and then somebody puts it out on social media. So now you got a bullseye on for that game 365 days away, which all he was doing was celebrating a win.
Yep.
So you're right. Yeah, you got to be really particular.
And I might try to do it. I'll probably have to sit with a blowhorn or something in the back, and if they get anywhere towing the line, I'll just have to blow it and say, "Hey, you're done. Go to the next group."
That's one of the nicest things that happened to me was Shane Steichen of the Indianapolis Colts would make fun of me at every Ely, Nevada training camp. Riding my 10-speed, which is what I did up there.
Yeah.
Doing this, like that I licked my
Yeah.
hands,
Yeah.
wearing sunglasses, adjusting myself in certain areas. Like it was freaking wicked, man. But
that's
I
great.
died laughing.
Oh yeah.
That's really cool. And so, but you're a coach's son, which to me is one of the coolest things. So, and then you grew up with a bunch of freaking brothers too, so that explains your toughness. But how did your dad had that stuff had to just been conveyed to you guys growing up? Like this is how you'll act as a football player and all that. I mean, how did that absorb? It was almost like osmosis, I would think.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but then also your chance and your opportunity to see your dad when he's a college football coach, especially at a program that really grinds, was to go and be in the office. So,
Right.
I mean, I can't, all summer long, if we wanted to go see him, we'd bring lunch, and he would always put together the big box at Taco Bell, and, my mom would take us over there with the big box at Taco Bell or a bunch of the 39-cent cheeseburgers or hamburgers at McDonald's, and we'd go sit in the office, like me and Trav and Larry and Jordan, and then oftentimes my sisters too, Tara and Kris. We'd just sitting there, and they would keep meeting. And my dad wasn't a guy that really cussed much. He cussed at me a couple times. It was on the field, but he wasn't a cusser or drinker or any of that stuff. So he felt very comfortable having his kids sit in there. And I think the other coaches knew, like, hey, when the kids are around, you're not going to be. There's no swearing, no cans of chew or anything like that. So I don't know if they tightened up or they were just a pretty tight staff, but we sat in there forever and just listened to them on the get on the board or listen to them talk through what a player was doing. And then we also saw the interactions of the players coming in, and they would come in all throughout the day, which I really appreciated. And I think as a coach sometimes we get so dialed in and locked in on I got this 4 hours of film, or I got this I got to get done, and then the players that really matter the most, you don't have time for them. And I will say in all that time of my life, he always had time for us, and he always had time for his players. So it's what you make important, right, is what you're going to really do.
For sure. And like probably a lot of us, we have strong memories of getting to go to work with our dad, which fundamentally is what you guys got to do, probably just a lot more than most kids did.
For sure. And it was different settings too, like we would always work whatever high school camp they had or youth camp. We were in the youth camps, and then we would work the high school camps. I mean, I can remember being 12 years old and crashing one of the golf carts because I was running water as one of the unofficial official trainers out there at camp. But that was the last time I drove the golf cart, to be fair. Yeah, but but be out at practice and be as close as we wanted to. And Coach Hill was awesome about that. We had all access all the time, and if we brought food up there, Coach Hill was going to come through and grab a couple bites of whatever you're eating and move on and go back to what he was doing. But that was a real family bond there for sure.
It was a special place, and I all I know is about it. I know from you, and I know from watching it when I was a high school coach. But I was struck by this stat, Eric, and I read a lot about your dad and Coach Hill the last couple of days. But Coach Hill, in his own way, kind of predated what Deion Sanders did when Deion went to Colorado. Because Coach Hill was like very public in the day before social media about we'll play anybody, anytime, anywhere, and then did it and went out and won 18 games against BCS level teams. And he really increased, because it was considered, that was a lot of bravado back in those days, right? Things were a lot more conservative, say, than they are now. And he brought attention to Fresno State. And then when the attention came, I remember being a high school coach, I saw them on TV all the time. But when the attention of the big games came, when they were playing up a level, they responded. And it does. It reminds me of a Deion deal, but 25 years previous. How he drew attention to the program. Do you remember that stuff?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Coach Hill talked about it before. We're in the day and age now where everyone's trying to jump conferences and get to a higher conference, but that was his mindset from the very beginning, was to grow Fresno State to the very best that he could and try to get into what was the Pac-10 at the time. And the way that we do that is we're going to knock off these big dogs. And I really feel like he built a group of dudes that was in the foxhole together, ready to go to war together, and we felt overlooked. And I say we, I mean, obviously I wasn't a part of the early groups, but I think there's a certain bulldog personality that you can really see. And now us old bulldogs, we watch guys, and I text with guys that I played with or guys that I worked with, and there'll be somebody that is doing really well for Fresno State, and one of the things we say is, oh, he's not a real bulldog. You could just see, it's just a feeling. He doesn't have a tough, hard edge to him. Coach Hill would always say that you're going to take on anything just face up, squared up, and you're waiting for them to turn their head or flinch. And so we kind of have a never flinch mindset. And you could see some guys that have played, and not in all years you see it, but in the years as you're away and you feel like an old guy watching back, it's like, he's not a real bulldog, or he doesn't have a hard edge to him.
Right.
But there's no doubt he was one of the first to really be vocal about we're going to take your money and then we're going to kick your butt. And making $1 million to go travel to Wisconsin and beating them on national TV, and that was happening year after year. The year I played, we went 9-4, but we beat Georgia Tech. We had Texas A&M go to double overtime, triple overtime, barely lost to them, and we beat Kansas State.
Right.
That's 3 Power Fives.
Yep.
And who's playing? And we lost to Oregon. We got smoked by Oregon, but we ended up playing 4 Power Fives in one season, beating 2 of them, and barely, Texas A&M at home squeaks us out with the 12th man.
You may or may not remember this, and I don't know Pat Hill. I mean, I've talked to him like 3 times. But I know one thing, when he was let go at Fresno State, that was a mistake. One that people think they've struggled with for a long time to get dug out of. And he went into television, right? He's like a color guy. And he ended up doing a game at Idaho, 2013 or 2014, when we weren't very good yet. And somebody kicked our ass, which the first couple of years happened quite a bit at home.
Yeah.
And everybody had left the coach's locker room except me and Paul Petrino were still in there talking, commiserating, whatever.
Yeah.
And the freaking door opened, because most guys knew we were probably in there and stayed the hell away.
Yeah.
And the door opened, and I'm like, who the hell's coming in here? and it was Pat Hill. And obviously didn't know him. I don't know if Paul knew him that well. I think he respected that Paul was a coach's son and he knew Paul's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he sat down and he's like, you guys are going to be fine, man. You can see it. Your kids, they're not flinching. You just don't have the talent yet. But you guys are going to be fine. And at a time when everybody thought we all sucked and we did a bad job of coaching, it was really cool for him to say. And eventually he was right. But I always sure thought a lot of him for taking a couple of minutes to go do that when he knew it probably wasn't the most fired up locker room of two coaches in the country.
For sure. And I'll tell you this, Coach Hill's.
Man, he probably was.
Yeah, for sure. And he's never met a door that he's afraid to walk through, I promise. I mean, I don't know if you remember that same trip. He showed up on, I think it was Thursday as we're finishing game planning, and he walks down the hall yelling, well, you're on the offensive side and we're on the defensive side finishing up everything. Where's EB at? Where's EB? Where is he? Is this the defensive staff room? It just opens the door. I'm like, Coach, let me come out. I'll talk to you out there. We're kind of in a meeting right now.
But you didn't strike me as a bashful figure.
No, he's definitely not that.
That's awesome. Couple things I want to get to before we're done, Eric. You coached college football for a while. We've talked about that a little bit. So what's been the best part for you so far of coaching high school football and being the head coach?
Yeah, I mean, the impact, I think, it can be even greater, the impact that you're making on the lives of these young kids. It's been cool to see some of the, as we get to year 4, year 5 now, guys that you've been around from 9th grade, 8th grade to when they're graduating, and seeing them, the changes that they've made, both physically, mentally, emotionally. I think as coaches, all of us, at least what most people say, but the good ones really feel it, is the impact that you can make and the growth that you can really help guide them through. And that part of it hasn't changed at all for me. So really I've been able to make an impact, and sometimes more of an impact, help aid in growth, and then now I'm getting more time with my kids and my wife and being home around my family. With young kids, I think that's been really cool too. So I don't want to leave that out either, because as much as football has been important and really fun coaching at this level, it's important that I'm able to grind and do the hard work, but then also take the time I need to be around my family.
No question, and the job that you have is excellent for that. And it's cool that the girls are going to be around athletics growing up, and it'll impact them in a positive way. I know my daughters were the same way. And I've had Eric to our clinic in Las Vegas as a speaker 2 times already in 3 years. I think he's an excellent teacher. I saw him on the board and presenting drill tape like we had to do at Idaho. And I made impressions of guys too, just like he's going to have his staff have to do that, which I think is wonderful. I think he's excellent at teaching tackling. And so can you give us a couple coaching points as you get ready to go out and teach people about tackling, Eric?
Yeah. The first thing I talk about a ton is your weapons, right? So you got your eyes, feet, hips, and hands as your weapons. Okay. And it's the same thing as when we talk about striking, and blocking. So those are our weapons. Our eyes, it's detailed with our eyes. So I'm an inside near hip, tracking, and then leverage is so important, as we all know. But a big thing I always drop on kids is ABC, always be closing, right? So your leverage is one thing, but if you just sit there at your leverage, you're giving two-way goes all over the place. So stick to your ABCs, always be closing, just like in sales, I guess. And then I think just not being afraid to shoot your shot. That's one thing I took really at the University of Idaho. I started telling kids that, because they look timid and scared that they're going to miss a play. And as long as you have leverage and you go and you make an attempt, I'm completely fine with it. There are such thing as bad or good missed tackles, right? If I go hard at the outside hip if I'm an outside shoulder player and I go hard at that outside hip and I really pull the trigger and I knife in there and I miss, he's going to have to stop and he's going to have to likely cut back or at least slow his feet enough to get back outside of you. So, in the end, we talk about all the time that we really don't like solo tackles. I think nobody does. So if we're really playing with good defensive intensity and effort and pursuit, we can shoot our shot freely knowing that somebody's going to really pick up the pieces if I do miss. And there are good misses, and that's okay. But yeah, the normal stuff, the fire your hips, the wrap and squeeze, the drive for 5, all that stuff. One thing I got from PJ Volker, who I worked with at Indiana State, who's now the defensive coordinator at Navy, really good linebacker coach, really good football coach, but he talks about killing the engine. And since we did these COVID linebacker clinics together, and since that clinic, I've used that statement, but the legs are the engine of the back, right? So the engine of the back, we're trying to kill the engine. So if I can't get to his legs, if I can't wrap his legs, it's going to be really hard to get him down for negative yard or for less than a gain, right? So we're trying to kill the engine in everything we do with leverage, with closeout. And there's so much more. I mean, Cink, I prepared an hour talk for your clinic.
Yeah, I know.
And I would have probably been cut off at halfway with a bunch of clips to go. But
Are you teaching a form of the Seahawk tackle that became the norm 8 years ago or whatever?
I am, but the one thing I really don't emphasize as much is and I don't know that everyone truly does, but the head completely out of it.
Right.
Yes, we are trying to have the safety of the game and all that, but if I'm meeting a running back, and just like you're looking at me face up right now, Cink, if I'm meeting you in the hole, there's no way I'm getting my head out of it. So I really look at tackling, and I kind of teach it as a clock or a continuum, where if I'm at 12 o'clock right now, that's a face-up, squared-up tackle. And I'm trying to get my nose under your chin and lift. And I'm going to wrap and squeeze and drive. I'm not going to go low in that situation. That's going to be – I need my friends to start grabbing legs as much as they can. I'm going to try to hook a leg if I can as we drive back. But that's face-up, squared-up tackling. Really 1 and, as we get off to the sides, 1 and 11 are those profile tackles that the Seahawks teach, where that's going to be a shoulder, right? If it's right foot, right shoulder. Those are good contact tackles for sure. And I'm trying to go through the V of your neck on the inside or with my leverage. I keep saying inside because a lot of times we're inside-out tacklers, but it's really just with my leverage. So that's profile. And then you really get to where it's more angle tackles, right? So angle high. I'm attacking at an angle. You're really working away from me. I'm trying to get to your waistband, and I may not have to wrap and roll if I can get my hat across, or I may have to wrap and roll depending on how much I slide. And then as I get lower on that clock, now it's angle low, right? So now I am going to go for the legs, but I should have a good chance at making the tackle. As you go down that clock, though, the percentage of your tackle goes down, right? So if I'm chasing, if I become a chase tackle on the clock and it's back this way, I'm sweeping the leg and maybe give myself a chance to get you down. But as I'm here with the tackle on the clock, and really as I get to lateral and above, we feel pretty comfortable that we should be able to make those plays, or at least slow them down if we shoot our shot.
Last thing, turnovers, takeaways. Are you teaching a guy as he's the second or third guy in to get the ball, or are you saying that hustle and effort will create turnovers?
I've done both, Cink. I've emphasized the next man in, and then we missed a bunch of tackles that week. And I've emphasized, this guy's loose with the ball, and if you feel like he can get it out, and we got ran through. So I truly, truly, truly believe that it's pursuit and effort and disruption is going to get you your takeaways. If we could play in the backfield with our front seven or DBs that we bring to the party, there's going to be real takeaway opportunities. Guys are going to throw the ball up. Guys are going to get sack fumbles. And then the rest of it is, go put your face in there, as hard as you can. with leverage, doing your job, and yeah, it's probably going to pop out.
Yeah.
I think the higher level you get, the more you can teach next man in and peanut punch and all that stuff. But those guys don't miss a ton of tackles.
Right. Good point. Well, hey, man, I'm going to wrap it there. You did a tremendous job, man. It's been an honor having you as the guest on the Sun Coaches West podcast.
I appreciate it, Sink.
Yeah, and I'm pulling for you, man. We love you up here, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, see you, EB.
All right, see you.